Hi there, welcome back to ADSR Machine Tutorials. Today we're going to be looking at the various different grid functions that we have available in Maschine. There's a couple of different grid functions to look at here. So start off, just explain very quickly if you're not familiar with using grids and grid values. Basically what we're talking about here is we know if we have one bar or 4 beats in a bar, so we have one bar of music, and the grid function is relative to the bar. So you can have a grid of 1 bar and then obviously 2 bars or 4 bars or 8 bars, and then within the bar we have these different grid settings, so half bar, quarter, eighth and 16th, which basically means it's going to divide that bar into either 2, 4, 8 or 16. Because we're going to be talking about different grid values, I just thought I'd explain it very quickly. And to look at this first grid function that we have up here in the transport bar, I'm going to load up a project that has quite a few different scenes in there and a bit of an arrangement and stuff. So give this a play. Okay, so what we have here is we've got these scenes and we've also got this loop range, this grey bar here. And I can actually change this loop range here by clicking and dragging the right point of the loop range, and I can shorten the loop range right down to just looping over a small section of music here. Click and drag, and then I can extend that loop range. And if you notice, what I might do here, if I play this track back now, we're just looping over, we'll set it to loop over scene 1, and I do this on the controller. You can also do this on the software, and I'm looping over this scene 1. I want to change to scene 4 or scene 7, scene 5, you know, it just changes the scene that it's playing back, changes straight away. We can also do this on the software, just hit the scene and it flicks to the scene in focus. It starts playing that back almost straight away, and that's because we've got it set to sync and 16th notes. So it basically means once we change the scene that is playing currently, as soon as we change it, it's going to switch to that scene at the end of the first 16th note in which we've kind of selected a different scene to play back. So 16th notes are obviously a very short amount of time and set to sync, so it basically means that it's going to do it at the end of a beat, so we're going to get a nice transition between that. If I change this setting in here now to say 1 bar and start doing the same thing as I was doing before, changing the scene playing back, see there's a little lag basically when we change the scene. If we change the scene right at the end of the bar, it's going to switch to the new scene straight away anyway, but if we don't, it's just going to play back to the end of the bar of music that it was playing and then switch to the new scene. So it's a bit more noticeable now. If I select scene here in this grid setting, what it's going to do now is it's going to play to the end of the scene and then it's going to flip to the new scene that we have in focus. It's still playing scene 2 and now it jumps to scene 8. And we can also turn this grid off, so this basically means it's not going to sync, it's just going to switch to that scene straight away, but it's not necessarily going to do it at the end of a beat unless our timing's really precise. So it's, you know, you might want to do it this way, you've got the option. But you're not necessarily completely, you know, getting it exactly tight on the beat that way. So a couple of different options there, and it's quite a useful live tool. I mean, if you want it at scene or 16th notes, it's quite useful for if you're playing some projects back live, or you know, or just auditioning scenes to get an idea of how you might want to arrange a track. It's pretty useful to have that in there. So the next grid options that we have down here in the pattern editor area. So if we look at this now, and this grid here first, we can actually edit the length, as I was showing you before, the loop range up here. I can actually shorten, if I shorten this, see there's like a snap function, and if I want to zoom in here, you know, it's snapping to a bar basically so this loop range. So I don't have to loop over a full scene, I can loop over just 2 bars there, or 1 bar. But it's snapping to a bar. If I want to change that snap here, I use this grid down here, and if I change this to say quarter notes, I can get more precise, or just different kind of loop ranges going on there. If I change it to bar again, it's going to snap back to bar. It's going to. I can also turn it off, so it's completely free now, completely loose. Go back to quick, which is on by default, and I'll explain quick in a bit more detail in a second. So we can change the loop length up here in the scene editor, and we can also change the pattern length down here according to the grid settings that we set here. So let's maybe go over to strip down scene 1. So we just got this pattern playing back. Pattern length is 4 bars. So we can click and drag this pattern length down here, down to 1 bar, 2 bar, 4 bar. If we change the grid setting, like with the scene loop ranges before, we can click and drag this loop length down. And at the moment, because we've got a grid setting of 16th notes, we can move it up or down in 16th note increments. Change this to 1 bar. We'll now move it in 1 bar increments. Again, of course, we can turn it off. Or by default, it's on quick. So quick is kind of relative to musical bars, basically. So if we're on quick, it will start at 1 bar, and then if we drag it out, it will go to 2, then it will go to 4, and then we can drag it out to 8, and then it will go up in 4 bar increments after that. So it will snap to 12 bars or 16, and we can actually have a pattern length of, I think, 256 bars, so quite long. So it's just going to keep going up in 4 bar increments. So this grid here, this is for your pattern length and also for your scene loop length. And so we've got a final grid down here basically, and this is the this kind of icon here that's activating or enabling your step grid, and this is the kind of step grid or the pattern grid. So at the moment by default it's on 16th notes. So you can see we've got 1 bar here, 1 to 2, and then it's divided into 16 kind of note increments here. If I change this to quarter notes, it's now this first bar. If we just want to loop over this first bar, it's now changed to quarter note increments. So, and also that's relevant to the kind of snap values of what we're going to place if we're going to start placing hits in this loop. So we can go right up to 128. So when you go up to 128, you've got 128 increments in this bar. You can't actually see it unless you zoom in here, because it's so small, such a small amount. You need to zoom in to see that these 128 kind of different increments there. So default 16th notes tends to be the most natural way, especially for me, to start programming hits in the step sequence. I'm just using 16th notes. So you have in here, you have triplet values as well. So if we change into triplet values and just delete all this pattern we have here and start programming in triplet values, there's kind of different time signatures. So we're getting 3, rather than 4 beats in the bar, we're getting 3 beats in the bar. And again, we've got quarter note triplets, 8th notes triplets, 16th, etc. Everything that we would have for kind of normal grid or time signatures. So you get some different kind of programming, some different vibes, different time signatures going on there with triplets. So, and one final parameter that we have available relative to the grid in here is this. If we change this back to 16th notes, is the nudge value. And this is kind of controllable. You set it in the software, but you control it with the hardware. So if I control click just in the background area here, I get this drop down menu and I get this nudge grid. So at the moment it's on step 2. So if I highlight, say, this hi-hat here, and I want to move this, go to my controller, I'm on a Mark II here, shift, and then I nudge it, and I'm going nudging it to the right, and nudge it to the left. It's moving in those set increments, and those increments that it's moving or nudging in is according to or set by this nudge grid here. So I can change it to 16th. It's going to be a lot more precise now. Or I could change it just to step here. So if we had it exactly on the kind of offbeat there and we wanted to sort of nudge this around, it's going to nudge it in 16th steps. But if I change this grid here, this pattern grid, to say quarter notes, it's now going to nudge it in quarter steps. So if we right click again, this nudge grid, these steps here, and goes to full step, this step, the length of this step is actually dictated by the grid setting that we have in here. So you know, and then of course just set it however you want to set it. I mean, for step it's quite useful if you're sort of programming and you want to sort of audition some hits in some different places. I think it was moving the whole sequence there because I had everything highlighted. So yeah, that's some stuff covered there on the various different grid functions that we have available in Maschine, and hopefully just if you're wondering what all of these are doing, it's cleared that up for you there. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Any questions, please get in touch and let us know. Make sure you also get yourself over to our website, machineskills.com. Tons more tutorials on there and featuring Native Instruments Maschine. And thanks for watching. Alright, cheers, bye.